How's it going, guys? I'm Josh. I just got back from a photo trip to Spain, so today I'm going to use one of my images to break down my creative process and show you how to experiment with your images. As a digital shooter, it is super easy to shoot hundreds of photos of the exact same subject, just trying to find that perfect moment. So today, I want to take you guys inside my head on one of those shoots, showing you what I do to experiment, how I fail, how I succeed, how I gauge what is and isn't worth shooting, and how I decide whether to give up or whether to persevere. Making a great image is not just a matter of stumbling into the right place at the right time. It requires strategic planning, lots of coordination, patience, experimentation, and a little bit of luck. Also, if you like this video, let me know in the comments so I know whether to turn this into a series. Diving right in, let's set the scene. I'm walking around Madrid, shooting street photos on my very first day of my Spain trip. So I'm only there for a 24-hour layover. There's no time to even scout the city. What I see is what I'm gonna get. It's 11 a.m., the sun is directly overhead and completely overpowering, so I knew that traditional straight-on photos of subjects would be tough because of shadows, so I wanted a bit of height variance. As I'm walking around, the bright orange of this parking garage entrance catches my eye, so I decide to poke around. Now, when I'm drawn to a person I see on the street, I have to think fast to catch that fleeting moment. When I find a location, I like to line up a perfect shot and actually wait for the subject to walk through, which gives me far more time to experiment and scout before actually shooting. I should also add, I was a bit nervous to photograph strangers without their permission, just jamming my camera into their face, because street photography is a little bit less accepted there and my Spanish is a CSC. Completely mediocre. So instead, I decided to stick with the composition of having people walk into my frame, because this requires a lot less direct confrontation. Oftentimes, you don't have to interact with your subjects, and sometimes they don't even realize that you're taking a photo of them. So great technique to use in foreign countries. So my scouting process begins. I like to walk 360 degrees around my prospective locations, gauging potential perspectives and compositions. Now, even if you think that you've found the perfect shot, keep walking around until you've given it a super thorough scout, because if one great shot reveals itself, there might be something even better just around the corner. So I like to go up the stairs, look up, climb over the stairs, look down. Basic rule of thumb, if the people around you don't think you look crazy, you're not doing a good job scouting. I fell in love with the deep shadows that the sun was casting on the orange wall, and also the shadows the bars cast from the handrails were phenomenal. I also knew the image would be much stronger by incorporating a subject, which leads us to composition. As far as composition goes, I study how often people pass through, where the flow of traffic is passing, and how I can combine the flow of traffic with the available shooting perspectives for an interesting composition. So I noticed that the strong sunlight actually blinded people when they walked out of this parking garage for the first time, making for a really interesting moment to capture. But there wasn't the same effect when they walked in because they were adjusted to the light, and it only lasted for the first second or two once they walked out. So I had to find a position that would capture both this jarring moment and the beautiful shadows that I wanted to include in the shot. Little tip here, sometimes you can actually guide people to the spots that you want them to by using your body or a friend's body as a blockade. So I wanted people on the right side of the stairwell, so by standing on the left side, people were more likely to move into the position I wanted them to, and I use this technique quite a bit. It's very, very helpful. Moving on, let's talk about calculating patience. At this point, we've got a nice composition and a good idea of where we want our subject to pass for that perfect shot. So now I'm going to calculate the likeliness of this shot actually coming together. I like to study how often are people passing through the shot, how often are they passing through the spot I want them to, and how often they're interesting subjects that will make for a nice photo. All these things need to come together, and sometimes in a busy location with heavy foot traffic, you're going to have a constant flow of people, so you know you'll find a great subject rather quickly. This parking garage, however, had a person walking out on average once a minute. Now, they look best if they walked on the right side of the stairwell, and this happened about half the time. And maybe 1/10 of the subjects are going to be compelling enough to photograph, whether it be for interesting clothes, mannerisms, expressions, etc. So no need to write out any formulas here, but I do want you to bear in mind the statistical likelihood of everything lining up and how much time the shot may require to take. Sometimes you're gonna get lucky, and the perfect person is gonna walk through in the perfect place in the first 2 minutes, and you'll walk away real happy with a magnificent shot. Luck does happen in street photography, but you do want to bear in mind that the less likely your shot is to come together and the more elements you're relying on, the longer the shot's probably going to take to get. This takes us to when to quit. You have to gauge how long it might take to get that shot versus the quality of the shot. So if the shot is going to be absolutely spectacular, then it doesn't matter how long it takes. 3 hours and it'll still be worth it. If the shot is not that great, however, it only takes a few minutes to shoot, you know it'll come together, then why not take it? You might surprise yourself. Now these shots that seem quite mediocre, but you know they're going to take a long time, those are the shots you have to abandon because there's better places to spend your time. When lighting and timing are limited, it's so important to know when to quit. And don't think of this as quitting, think of it as maximizing your time, knowing when to move on to a better shot. So for this photo, it was entirely contingent on really harsh lighting because I needed those dark shadows and the blinding light. And judging by where the sun was, I figured I had about 45 minutes before I lost my son and the shot opportunity was over. Rarely do I snap a picture and know that was definitely the one. It's typically me snapping 50, 100 pictures knowing that I might have a few good ones, but not knowing when to stop. So once I have a few decent options, I'll typically set a timer for when to stop so I don't hunker down on the same shot for too long. I spent about 20 minutes shooting this location, saw my good light was going to be blocked by clouds soon, so I gave myself a 10-minute timer and then experimented with all my leftover time until the sun was disappearing. Sometimes you're going to find locations and think, the lighting sucks right now, but it's going to be much better in a few hours. For this, I'll just make notes on my phone on spots to go back to. This takes us to shooting. Let's talk a little bit about gear. I shot these with my Canon 6D Mark II and my 24-105 f4 lens at 1/250th of a second, f10 and ISO 400. Now I tried a few landscape oriented shots but realized that portrait orientation was the way to go. Now I'm shooting this in high-speed continuous mode since I didn't know the precise moment when I wanted my subject to be, and my focus is set to zone autofocus with AI servo because I wanted to track my subject's movement, keeping them in focus as they walked up the stairs. Throughout the series I battled with a couple things. One, I struggled with finding the perfect composition to maximize the impact of the shadows. Too far to the right and the bar shadows on the left wouldn't look that great. Too far to the left and you have too much of the side in the background. I didn't like the text of it, I thought it was distracting, so I tried to avoid capturing that or have my subjects block it out, which proved to be more difficult than I anticipated. Final review, in the end, I ended up with an image that I'm pretty happy with. I don't think it's incredible, I also don't think it's too bad. I like that it has strong leading lines with the bars, I like the deep shadows, I like that he's hanging his head in this kind of shameful look, which is funny in comparison to the graphic in the top right where the guy looks like he's skipping downstairs happily. I don't like how you can't really see his briefcase too well. I decided on having deeper shadows over being able to see the briefcase perfectly. I also would have loved to have a model for this spot because there were positions that I would have loved to have a subject that I knew the person would never walk into naturally. But this was a good compromise and I'm very happy with how the image turned out. In the end, I spent about 45 minutes shooting this photo, and knowing that I put a lot of work into it definitely makes me more appreciative. Now, you can be bogged down sometimes by knowing how much effort went into shots, because sometimes the easiest shots, the quick snapshots you take, will be your best ones, and the ones you labored away at won't be that great, and it's so easy to become biased knowing the effort we put in. Just remember that your audience has no idea how much effort you put in and frankly doesn't even care. Easy solution here, I oftentimes ask my friends or other photographers for their advice on which shot is best because I am just sometimes way too biased. This concludes my process. Be sure to follow my Instagram to see more of my work from Spain, and let me know in the comments if you liked this video or found it helpful so I know whether or not to make this a series. I think it'd be really fun to do this for more types of photos besides just street shots, and I've got a lot to talk about. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more videos, and check out my 9-hour-long comprehensive photography course, link in the description. That's all I have to say. I will see you eventually.